Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCapped. My name is Dr. Zora, and in today's video we're going to go over 9 advanced tips to absolutely dominate with the Phantom. Since Valorant's release, there continues to be discussion on which rifle is better. Is it the Phantom or the Vandal? We're going to get into a deep dive of that specific topic in a separate guide, but they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Some of the strengths of the Phantom include its faster firing rate, lack of bullet tracers, and easier to control recoil. We're going to show you how to fully take advantage of the Phantom's strengths so that you can dominate your enemies. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Starting things off with our question of the day, and it is, what rifle do you use the most? Being this is a guide focusing on the Phantom, there could be several reasons that led you here. Maybe you want to main the Phantom and learn how to get better at using it, or maybe you're a Vandal main that wants to learn how to counter the traits of the Phantom that make it so strong. Make sure to drop a comment down below as we want to continue the debate between the two rifles, and heck, maybe you're maining an outlier. Jumping right into it, first and foremost, if you're going to use the Phantom, you need to play aggressive. One of the biggest disadvantages of the Phantom is its damage drop off at longer ranges. Beyond 15 meters, the Phantom no longer one-shots enemies in the head, so you have to put a little bit more work to get your kills. Because of this, we want to avoid playing longer ranges as much as possible, and this means you want to play closer into the choke points to ensure your bullets do the maximum damage possible. This is an area that is simple to hear at first, but ends up being highly neglected when players actually get into their matches. Having the right position is crucial to unlocking the full potential of the Phantom. The Phantom shines in close range engagements, and as such, you should try to get into enemy faces as much as you can. For example, on Bind, playing a position such as Heaven with the Phantom will be very disadvantageous. This is because you're setting yourself up for long range duels where the headshot is only going to do 124 damage and you have to hit another long range shot to kill the player. If the other enemy has a Vandal, they're likely going to kill you with their own headshot before you hit the follow-up. Instead, playing a closer angle such as U-Haul will be much better, particularly for holding a short, as any players that try to push you will be within the 15 meter mark and you'll be able to kill them with a single headshot. Speaking of headshots, if you want to increase your headshot percentage and hit one taps like the pros, then go to skillcapped.com to unlock our hyper improvement system that will teach you everything you need to blast through the rankings in Valorant. The link will be provided in the description below. Going into tip number 2, a cool tech that can help you crush your enemies is crouch shooting. Now this isn't what it appears at first. Most of you guys that have heard this are probably thinking about crouching down before you shoot. This is a common habit that players develop, and we could go on and on for a whole video on that as well, but that's not what this tip is about. Rather, this tip is actually crouching after you start shooting your initial few bullets. What this does is it helps you with your recoil control, particularly when you're in a long range engagement. Say we're in a mid range or long range duel with an enemy. Like we mentioned earlier with the Phantom, we won't be able to one tap headshot a player here. We need to hit that initial shot and then pull our trigger down to hit a follow-up shot. What we can do to make it easier to hit that next shot is crouching afterwards. Hit that first headshot, and by crouching immediately afterwards, you can hit that next bullet without needing to move your mouse at all. This makes it way easier to finish off opponents, especially at longer ranges where the recoil can prove to be quite challenging to handle. Do note that this really is only effective if you do hit that first headshot. Without that, you'll end up hitting much more body shots and giving yourself a harder time of killing players. Hit that first headshot and then go into the crouch for easy hits. This is a follow-up to tip number 2, but our third tip is making sure you burst fire at longer ranges with the Phantom. Crouch shooting is really effective when you hit the initial headshot, and especially when the enemy is staying still. But let's say you end up whiffing your initial shots or the enemy is moving around a lot, like they would with an SMG. Rather than trying to control the spray after missing your first few bullets, it's better to stop shooting, let your recoil reset, and then spray a few more shots again. This gives you much more accurate bullets, along with giving you time to line up your crosshair again on a moving player instead of trying to move your crosshair to the left or right while the player is moving around. Not only does burst firing help improve your accuracy, but it also allows you to move around while you wait for your recoil to reset. This forces the enemy player to also have to adjust their crosshair to hit you. Essentially, you're getting a 2-for-1 special here, more accurate shots while also making yourself a harder target. Again, this technique is really good for long range engagements, particularly if you're having a hard time hitting those first few bullets and the enemy is running circles on you. Continuing on with long range engagements with the Phantom, tip number 4 might sound counterintuitive, but it is aiming for the body at medium to long ranges. We're going to say it once more, but the Phantom will not one-shot headshot at long ranges. Because of that, if we focus on aiming right on the head at longer ranges, this will make it much harder for you to hit a follow-up shot. If we don't pull down enough, our shots will be too high, and if we pull just right, we'll be targeting the enemy's head again, which is a much more difficult shot to hit. If we aim for just below the enemy's head, what ends up happening is we can hit a very easy body shot, and the recoil of the Phantom will actually do the rest of the work for us to get the headshot. By aiming for the body, we don't have to work as hard, and we just let the gun itself do the work. One thing to note is this tip only applies if you know the enemy has full health and armor. If they only have light armor or no armor at all, then they're going to be killable with one headshot on the Phantom. Phantom. Because of this, aiming for the enemy's head in those situations will be more beneficial regardless of the range. Going into tip number 5, one aspect that is really unique to the Phantom is its ability to run and gun. This may seem like a very silly concept, but in close range engagements, and I mean very close engagements, the Phantom can actually be very accurate while moving. Because of this, you'll notice that many players will actually shoot while running. This makes them a harder target to hit while also being able to hit fairly accurate shots onto enemies. It's an annoying technique to face, but because of that, we recommend taking advantage of it to make sure that you too are tilting the enemies, all while racking up the frags on the scoreboard. To effectively run and gun, we recommend aiming more at body level as well. This is because there will still be recoil involved since you're shooting along with moving, so aiming more at body level will actually help get your shots to hit more towards the head. Again, this really only works at close ranges within the 5-meter mark, so make sure you carefully analyze the distance between you and the enemy before deciding to use the technique. Tip number 6 for the Phantom is more of something that you shouldn't do with this weapon, and that is using ADS. ADS stands for aiming down sights and is when you right click and scope into the weapon. This is a tempting thing to do for novice players because you'd think the zoom helps make it easier for you to hit your shots. However, what ends up happening is the complete opposite. Something very important to note is that when you're using ADS, the firing rate decreases and the recoil also becomes a lot more wild on the Phantom. This actually increases the amount of time it takes to kill your enemies while also making it much harder to hit your shots with the crazy recoil that you get when ADSing. Due to these two negative factors, ADSing is actually very disadvantageous with the Phantom, which is why we are highly against using it. Stick to hip firing, which is when you shoot without scoping in, and you'll find yourself hitting way more shots and having a much easier time of killing enemies. Transitioning to tip number 7, avoid playing headshot only angles. We're going to go back once more to the fact that the Phantom can't one-tap headshot at medium to long ranges. Because of this, if we try to play an angle where we can only see the enemy's head, such as if we're on the low ground looking over at pipes, we're putting ourselves in a very tough situation where we'd have to hit 2 difficult headshots to get a kill. There's simply no reason to put ourselves in spots where it's harder for us to get kills, so we suggest playing positions where enemies are more exposed to ensure that you can get the headshot but also be able to hit a subsequent body shot as necessary. Tip number 8, if you really want to frag out with the Phantom, we suggest playing Duelists. When playing Duelists, your role is to get into enemies' faces and take the initial fights. Duelists have abilities that are meant to achieve this, and most of the time that includes having abilities that help you close the distance between enemy players. The closer you are, the better it is for the Phantom since you avoid the damage drop off. Duelists excel at closing the gap, which is why using the Phantom particularly with these agents is highly beneficial. This compared to playing an agent like Killjoy or Cypher, where you are going to play further back and more passively, waiting for enemies to fall into your setup. In those scenarios, you're in longer ranges where the Phantom is still good, but not as great as it is when you're getting in close. Duelists really help make the Phantom shine. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that only Duelists should run the Phantom. You can play aggressively with any agent, and as such, the Phantom would greatly benefit you, but Duelists do make the job a little bit easier. Last but not least, our 9th tip for taking advantage of the Phantom is shooting through smokes. This is a very highly overlooked aspect of the Phantom, but when you shoot your shots, you actually don't leave behind any bullet traces. Because of this, if you were to shoot through a smoke, the enemies wouldn't be able to identify the exact position that you shot from, which means there's no possibility for them to counterplay you. Now if someone was to shoot through the smoke with a different weapon that does leave tracers, you'll be able to identify their position and shoot them without them really being able to shoot you back. It will still be relatively difficult to hit your shots, but since the enemy doesn't see any tracers from the Phantom, you can safely fire shots to get some suspicious looking kills or to deal some chip damage for free onto enemies. Point be told, don't be afraid to shoot through smokes with the Phantom. Alright, so which rifle do you use the most in Valorant? Let us know in the comment section below, and while you're down there, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next. I'm Dr. Zora, and good luck out there.